Guys coming out and kicking off the day with us. Today's session is going to be focused on success. So this is a session of inspiration with this amazing panel that I will introduce here shortly. My name is Manveer Sandhu. I'm the founder and chief innovation officer at Zennify. For those of you who are not familiar with us, we are a technology consulting firm. We focus on Salesforce. We focus on accelerated transformation and accelerated ROI. Our primary customer base is financial services, and specifically banks and credit unions. Big part of our business. We love our jobs. We get to speak with leaders at financial institutions on a day in, day out basis, weekly basis. So what you're gonna hear today from this panel, and for me, is really a manifestation of our collective experience. We've been at this for 10 years. So there is a lot that we bring to the table as far as how to successfully transform. It's been a rocky year in banking and credit union land, as you guys are well aware. Rising interest rates, inflation, a slowing economy, commercial real estate issues. We're in this space. One good thing about commercial real estate is we got the space. Ordinarily, we wouldn't have the space. So I'm making a joke out of it. It is a big deal. And it's been challenging. But despite that, you are here, right? It is not easy to come here. It's a big commitment to spend the money, to take the time out. So I compliment you for that and congratulate you for that, because that's a big part of the journey, is just starting the awareness cycle, being curious. And it is an amazing week because of artificial intelligence, right? And you're gonna hear a lot about that. The technology is amazing, it's inspiring. I can't wait to get into it. But we're not gonna get into that in this session. There will be a session in a few hours where we talk about generative AI, but this session's not about all the amazing technology. This session is actually how you successfully implement. And one thing that is a quote that has been estimated is that 70% of digital transformations actually fail. They don't get across the finish line. And that's a really high percentage. Like 70%, that's alarming, right? It's not good for me, it's not good for Salesforce, it's not good for consultants, and it's definitely not good for banks and credit unions. And so we don't want to be in that category, right? And it's hard to overcome that. It can set you back for years. It creates emotional, cultural, setbacks, and those are things that are hard to recover from. There's a lot of scars. We work with customers. Sometimes we arrive, at clients that have gone through bad implementations. And so there's a lot of trust issues. There's a lot of risk, as there should be, because they're not easy. Today, what we're going to focus on are, what are some of those core obstacles, those core challenges that choke progress, right? That hinder success. And more importantly, what are the critical success factors and best practices that you can learn from our amazing panel here as far as how to overcome those, how to avoid those things, what to really focus on, what gets overlooked. So today's session is really focused on customer success. And we're going to take the next hour or so, and it's going to be very interactive. We'll have pauses in between for you folks to ask questions, okay? So on the theme of success, the first topic we're going to talk about here. Well, actually, first we're going to introduce our panel. Okay. So we're going to start, Kelly, with you. If you could introduce yourself, organization you're with, and then a question for all of you guys is, what do you like to do after a successful live? Because this session's all about success.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Perfect.
Okay. My name is Kelly Miller, and I work at Compeer Financial. I lead their ag tech initiative there, and it's really how that we show up digitally with our ag tech partners. So we want to be able to offer a really good solution for farmers in the marketplace. And Compeer Financial is one of the largest farm credits. So if you've ever heard of farm credit, we're one of the largest farm credits in the United States. So we are about a $30 billion organization that serves farmers. I like to say we finance the food chain. So think of the farmers that are going across the fields, but also the really large agribusinesses that are out in the marketplace. And I'm happy to be here. And one of the things that I would say that I try to do, I'm not always good at, because I'm always, let's go on to the next thing, because there's always something continuing to strive for. But the one thing we did recently was we had a fun day of bowling. I know that sounds kind of corny, but it's super fun. We had a great time as our team. We went bowling and celebrated and had a great dinner.
Awesome. Love it. And Anthony.
Anthony Morris, this on.
Just gotta hit that button.
There you go.
There we go. Is that on?
Yeah. Good.
Good morning, everyone. Anthony Morris. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer at Encino. Encino is Salesforce #1 partner in banking. We do effectively end-to-end product originations and portfolio management across every asset type within a bank, from credit unions all the way up to the largest banks in the world. And prior to that, I spent 10 years at Salesforce running the banking group, helping to build financial services cloud and stayed in the ecosystem. I think today is an exceptionally good topic because everybody, and especially at conferences like this, focuses on the tech. And after 25 years and probably, 400 banks around the world that I've dealt with, these are people issues to get to success. The tech is overinflated, right? So there's a whole conversation around that. But not that dissimilar to Kelly. After any success, whether it's a go live, whether it's a major toll gate in the development or the design process, whether it's even the executive has signed off on something, right? It's about the team.
Good.
It's about recognizing the people who day in, day out come in and do the real work and have to execute and deal with the pain. And we do whatever can be done to appreciate these folks, to have fun, to let loose, to pop the stress of the balloon, to let people know that we're our one team. There's no like leadership and the people coding. It's one environment. So anything and everything that can lift up the team, even the smallest of little things, little rewards, grab bags from the dollar store. You'd be amazed to know how much people just appreciate little tokens that will keep them going.
Love
From
it.
the dollar store? I was thinking
Tiffany's.
There we go.
Greg was on my team for 5
Yeah.
years, so
Good morning, everyone. Greg Blasi. I'm on the Financial Services Cloud Product Management team. I'm a senior director around solutions and strategy, so I cover banks, both retail and commercial. My role is more like outbound product management. I'm not sitting behind the keys building the product, but actually interfacing with our clients to understand what needs are emerging, tracking the industry to make sure we're staying on top of where it's going and that we're relevant. And that we build the best version 1 that we put out there possible. In terms of that, I guess we're 2 for 2 on gratitude, so let's just assume that's a given. A little bit of a nerd, I guess, in that I'm not in it during the actual ramp up and deployment, so I like to hear the fallout from it and like what could have gone. That's really weird, isn't it? But I like to hear what could have gone better because that helps me do my job and understand like where we need to make improvements.
Awesome. And Michael.
We're sharing a microphone. Big aloha to everybody this morning. My name is Michael Sabato. I'm with Golden One Credit Union, formerly with Travis Credit Union. There's a little logo there and some folks here from the credit union. And so I oversee our cores and enterprise software at Golden One Credit Union. I know it sounds boring, but one of the cool things that I'll be able to get into is going to be Salesforce. We're in the beginning of our Salesforce journey at Golden One, after doing a successful implementation at Travis Credit Union. So one of the things that I like to do is, I spend some time in startups, is everything is very iterative and very like Scrum based. So we celebrate our wins when they happen, as they happen along the way and along the whole journey. So the whole journey feels as successful as the ending, because it's a part of the journey too. It's not just the destination. So that's my big takeaway from doing a Salesforce implementation, is really try to find all of those moments when you had small wins, maybe dollar store wins, but you're really focusing on making sure that the experience is pleasurable for everybody involved throughout the entire life cycle, from your member to your internal employees to your board to whoever. In having those weekly wins is a big deal.
Awesome. Thank you, panel. So in the room, we have institutions that are at varying stages of implementation. Some are very early, some are midstream, some are more mature. And what we've talked about as a collective panel, everything starts in the beginning with a unified vision and stakeholder alignment. So we're going to kick off with that topic here initially. And Kelly, if you wouldn't mind sharing just a little bit more about Compare Financial and AgTech, what you embarked on, what that vision was, what the business is about, and ultimately what you all achieved.
Awesome. Thank you. We, as an agricultural lender, we are firmly based on relationship lending. So, and it's been extremely successful, right? So I'm going to take you back almost 4 years ago now. And we had record profits, all of those things, right? There was no indication that we absolutely needed to move and change. But what was great is I was knocking on our CFO's door saying, hey, there's this thing happening. More and more agriculture is going online. Our clients are able to do business online and we're not showing up there. We've really had a firm footing on we're going to meet where the clients want to meet, whether it be in our office, whether it be on their farms, whether it be in their agribusinesses, but we were not showing up online. And so what we did is we put a really great business plan, financial business plan together and said, hey, we don't know what we're going to do. We don't know what it's going to look like, but we're going to try it. And in late of 2020, I pick up a phone call from my CEO and he's like, I think we should do this and I would love for you to do it. And I immediately said, okay, and hung up. And I thought, what did I just get myself into? I don't have a product. I have no idea how we're possibly going to do this, but I knew that there was a market that was out there. And so ultimately, I spent a first couple of months connecting with my ag tech group that I've kind of followed along over the last couple of years prior to that. And I said, what's missing? How can we do better? How can one of the largest agricultural companies come alongside you to make sure that our farmers are served really, really well because they deserve it? And so did that and said, okay, let's get started. And with the help of our internal technology team members, our board, with the approval from them saying, okay, Kelly, go figure this out. And here's a couple people. And to your point around making sure that the team is brought along in the process, we absolutely had our executive team, our board, really saying, okay, we'll try it. We have some money. We have some budget. You have a year. Let's figure this out. And right at about a year, we launched one of our first products into the marketplace, and we turned it on, and I was like, oh gosh, is this going to work? Is it not going to work? Kind of thinking about the fallout, Greg. But it did. And it proved to us that farmers wanted to do business online and that we were partnering with the right people. So really kind of what we built behind the scenes is making sure that we have an easy APIs to connect to. And so our clients and our partners from an ag tech perspective can connect with really easy financing from Compeer Financial. So that's a little bit about that. Hopefully that answers your question there.
No, it was awesome.
Okay.
And you guys were wildly and continue to be wildly successful.
Yeah. So the first year out, so in 2021, we kind of turned the lights on in November of 21. And we started seeing success late of November into December. And then the following year, our now CEO says, we're going to make this $100 million next year. And I said, I have no idea where that's coming from, but sure, I'll jump in with both feet. And by the first year, end of the first full year, it was a little over 400 million, and which creates a whole other thing from a change management side. But the reason that we got the buy-in was because the business was there. And then this year we'll not quite double that. And then the following year, it'll, I just got my numbers that I'm expected to do next year, which is in the billions. So it's super exciting.
Incredible. So, Anthony, I know you've got a strong point of view on this topic of stakeholder alignment, and Kelly did this, you know, in the face of this whole banking thing that happened. So there was plenty of times when the CFO, you know, and other stakeholders came to the table and said, should we pause, right? You know, what's your advice to the group here as it comes to dealing with CFOs and ROI and getting aligned vision?
I think effectively, you know, as a financial services industry, we have to be realistic. We live in the here and now. The whole industry is about risk, right? And people who are not necessarily tied to the financial realities and what's going on. I mean, it's been weird. Sorry. You know, how the liquidity crisis earlier in the year and the bank failures effectively put everybody in sort of a freeze moment. Like we weren't sure what was going on, right? Sort of shocked people into reality. And the way you manage, you know, the alignment and the understanding and the visibility when practical economic realities are impacting the business or the day-to-day is communication and transparency. Okay? As I said earlier, I've seen literally hundreds of implementations of every type of banking solution you can imagine, from CRM to core banking to analytics to loan originations to everything. And the most successful programs are based on the most fundamental of principles, right? Leadership, vision, communication. Every week, all the time, right? People know what's going on, so they are part of the journey, not just, in a silo, in a room, developing use cases, disconnected from what's going on. Like when there is a breadcrumb trail from the smallest little, scrum team up to the CFO, right? And I saw this incredible bank. They were in Texas. I won't mention their name, but they created this sort of digital landing page, if you will, that everybody was required to view on a weekly basis and to provide their comments. And the key leaders and the key Scrum teams were constantly providing their input so that everybody knew what was going on all the time. Right. It's never perfect. It never is. But the best programs have the leadership, the communication, the transparency, especially when things are not going well in the market. If we're pausing a program, if we have to remove this $100 million funding and put it in credit loss provision, right? Why is that happening? Right? What does that mean? Right? So that would be very simple ingredients. And most of this is those simple ingredients, but most institutions don't follow it.
Awesome. Michael, your situation is very interesting. You had a lot of success at Travis Credit Union. We worked with you guys on that, and now you're embarking on a new journey. You and I have talked about cultural alignment and risk aversion. Would love for you to expand on that.
Yeah, so I think that, financial institutions are just usually very conservative, right? Fiscally, culturally, very conservative. And so there's a lot of policies, there's a lot of board decisions and this kind of thing. And sometimes that can really stifle the innovation. And so I think it's really important to collectively look as an organization, maybe even just pause and do one of these like digital maturity assessments. Deloitte has a great one and some of these others, right? Is this that you're, the Salesforce implementation or any implementation that you're doing candidly, does it align with your strategy? Do you have the technology capability to take it on? Are you operationally ready to take it on? Are you just coming out of a core conversion, which is what we did at Travis Credit Union, right at the heels of doing that, which if anybody's in financial industry knows that if you do a core conversion, it's probably one of the most painful things that you can do. And to add insult to injury, we did a Salesforce implementation right afterwards. And we're a very transactional credit union, and now we want to talk about generational products. And so getting that cultural alignment really starts with making sure everybody understands and can sign it with their heart. And so we look at things like the ad card method for change management, making sure that there's awareness and there's desire and there's knowledge, et cetera. I don't remember the rest of the car. But there's also, there's a lot that you can do there in really just being thoughtful about how you're going to delight the experience for both your membership and your employees every step of the way. And I think that's probably like the cornerstone of what I hope that you hear from me today is really around that. If you're from product management, you'll understand the jobs to be done framework. And so when we look at that, we say, oh, okay, what are we trying to achieve? And making sure everybody's on the same page of what we're trying to achieve. When we were at Travis Credit Union, we were focused on reducing the amount of clicks that folks had to do in the branch. And that did not really resonate well with our membership. They didn't care how many clicks were happening behind that screen. And so we had to really focus like, well, what is it that we're trying to do? We want to present value in any channel. Oh, okay. Well, then we can look at things like offer presentment and easier offer fulfillment. So there's a lot of things that you can do to really focus on the experience that you have for the employees. And if you have an employee first experience culturally, your digital employees will create the digital experience for their membership. And I think that that's probably like that's the hard thing to focus on is what are you trying to do? And as long as everybody's like understands that and everybody's marching to the beat of that drum, then you can make it across that finish line with less pain and hopefully enjoy the experience.
Awesome. Greg, business and IT don't always align. And would love to get your recommendations and tips on harmonizing that connection.
So in my intro, I left out the other part, which was before I came to Salesforce. I was at Huntington Bank for 20 years, and the last 5.5 years I was there, I ran our deployment of Salesforce on the business side. And for us there, it's a little bit of a personal story, but now I see it in other customers, and that is that when you do this right, you're considering every persona that touches something. And so oftentimes, and this is speaking to some of the change management stuff that Michael was talking about, but you're not just thinking about the banker and the customer, but you're thinking about the operations person, the middle office risk person, right? The AML folks who are really, really behind the scenes, and how that all works together. And so you have to be aware of that. So when I talk about bringing business and IT together, I don't just mean like the revenue generating folks and the folks who are delivering the technology, but really anybody who touches a process, because if you're going to make the process efficient and better, you really got to take all of that into consideration. And there's nothing worse than a lift and shift. And do you know how many people I hear like, where are you starting? Oh, we're doing this. I said, what'd you do in your old CRM? Oh, we did that. Good. Wow. Like, that's not inspiring. You just purchased the #1 CRM in the world. If you purchased FSC, by the way, Forrester, we are the leader in the new Wave report on financial services CRM. Shameless plug. And you're paying a premium on top of that. Use it. Use it. And don't be afraid to change it and make it better. So that's what I would say, and just the importance of having everybody on the same page. And a goal, to your point, that everybody can understand, and everybody knows how their day-to-day activity relates to that and what they need to do to achieve it.
Greg hit an interesting word, which is change. Change, the word change and bank or credit union, they're not necessarily harmonious, right? Like, it's scary. The bank I worked at in Canada, for a number of years, we went through a massive retail lending transformation, literally from like now I'm dating myself, but like every branch had, the big manuals in the cupboard, right? And the lady who ran retail lending at the time, literally for the whole project team, she brought in one of those cupboards with like literally 50 binders, and she threw it on the ground. And she said, we're going to get rid of all of those, and we're going to take whatever. It takes 6 days to prove a loan. We're going to take it down to 6 minutes. That's your task. And the fear in people's eyes, the uncertainty of what that meant, the implications for everybody. Like, banks are slow to change, a lot less so today than 10 years ago, than 20 years ago. So addressing the human reality of fear and change from a cultural DNA perspective is almost like fundamental to getting these programs ignited to the extent that they can actually deliver what they're supposed to. And when people are not just inspired, but emotionally bought in to what's happening, then the sky's the limit. If they're scared, yeah.
I want to add one thing to this. So we talk a lot about change in our organization as well. I think one of the things, if I could go back 2-3 years from now, is be able to really paint a vision what might their jobs look like in 2 or 3 years. And I think that was one of the spaces that if I would go back into, it's like, imagine if you're doing this differently. Imagine if you're doing that versus like, we're going to start offering loans online. And that's a different like view or vision. If you're saying, hey, what if you didn't actually have to worry about the application and you actually are talking about more impactful things to your farmer or to your agribusiness? Doesn't that make you happier than taking an application, whether it be online or, on a yellow pad, because that's literally what was happening. And so that's one of the areas that I wish we would have done better a few years ago. And we're getting better at it every year and every month as we continue down this journey as well.
Okay, awesome. So unified vision, unified goals. So let's talk about decision making and governance, especially as it pertains to selecting, choosing the technology, devising the roadmap, devising the implementation strategy, because there are different strategies. And so to kick things off, I'm going to dive into a little bit of a political topic because I get to deal with this firsthand. Last week I was on the East Coast, and Michael Rouleau and I were sitting at the table with a very senior executive leader, and I was venting to him about a story where one of the folks I am working closely with has decided to build their own account opening solution in-house, super custom, and it's going to take like 2 years and a lot of money. So I was venting about that. And his feedback to me is, you know what I do when that situation comes? He says, first I ask the person, would you hire me to run your bank? And this is an IT software leader. And after he gets his answer, it's usually no. He said, then why do you think you're in a good position to build enterprise software, right? And so that really stuck with me. That was actually last week. I think Anthony, I shared that with Anthony as well. But I would love, Kelly and Anthony, if you guys can talk about this. Kelly, you talked a lot about getting help, right? Early on, getting expertise. What are the implications one way or the other?
Yeah, when we decided that we were already on Salesforce, by the way, we had that as our core, and we had our own loan origination software. It was homegrown. It was because we were so special, right? We were special.
I've heard loan origination software.
Oh, yes, and so we had our own, and then we actually went on to nCino. Is that what you were wanting to say? But then we went on to nCino, and it was a system that allowed us prior to that to get to where we were at. But the key phrase in our organization right now is what got us here won't get us where we want to be. And it wasn't, a couple keywords that I always use, is it scalable and is it sustainable? Can we do these two things when we're going to get bigger, right? Our CEO has huge aspirations for our organization. And so without kind of making this huge transformation, we were never going to get there. And, we still probably need a heck of a lot more help, but we were on Salesforce. We had already made the decision on nCino, and we had hired Zennify to help us, right? We have our own IT shop. We do lots of things, right? We do a lot of things within our organization, but we knew this is an area that we weren't good at. We were not good at, right? We didn't know all the ins and outs of nCino. We had, I would say, remedial work from a Salesforce perspective. We're a lot better now. And it helped us make sure that we had the right people to support us in our vision. We were clear with Zennify of what we wanted to be from an ag tech perspective and how they could help us, and we were ruthless. And when I say ruthless, I mean we had really good product managers. We had really good people that said, do you actually need that? We're not just picking up what we did before and putting it in a new software. How might we need to look at this if the client did all of this digitally? And we made those decisions accordingly. We weren't just copying and pasting. And that's what made our implementation really successful. We had people that helped us along the way. We had really great software. And Zennify helped us with this vision. Like we know, and dates. That was another key thing. So not only helping, we had a really key date in the marketplace from an ag loan perspective. We needed to get this out by September 1st. And I was ruthless on it. Nobody liked me for that. But I had to give and take on that piece. So a lot of help, both externally and internally.
Expertise is a funny word because, we're going to hire these experts or these people know or what have you, right? And, as I said, I've been in this game a long time. And when you hear experts, whether it's from the vendor, software vendor, whether it's from a partner, the goal is to tap into the people who have lived and have the scars, right? Because expertise without practical, experience is just a point of view, right? So I always say when you're learning about what to do or what the destination is or, how to modify or change your organization over time, I always say, well, who's lived it and who can I have a conversation with that can talk at the strategy level, but get right down to should that data field be real time or not, right? And those are the people you want part of your organization. Or part of your journey. You just don't want them during the sales cycle as such, or pop in once every 6 months, right? Like, is Greg going to be sort of my FSC sponsor for this journey? And we'll check in with him every month or whatever it may be. Maybe I gave you another job responsibility. The other point is the expertise within your own organization. This is all done for the users. It's all done for the customers, right? If you look at your best users and your worst users and listen to them and what they need and what, everyone's all hot wired outside of work for everything to just happen on their phone, right? I go to book a flight. I just put the from and to destinations everything else is pre-populated. Knows my preferences, got my credit card, my frequent flyer account, books my hotel. But I go into the office or I go into my iPad and I got to do a loan application and I'm having to put everything in. So the expertise from your frontline humans is, I find, probably the most undertapped resource. And it goes to the ultimate point that when you're giving them something that you think they want versus what they actually tell you they want, then your adoption goes up. Then the ability to meet the business goals goes up. Then the success of the program reaches its goals. So I would challenge everybody to look at that word expertise and understand, who can bring it? Do they have the qualities? Do they have the scars? And are you tapping into it internally more so than, you can come to conferences like this and get inspired all you want. But at the end of the day, you go back and you're in your conference room and you're looking around the table, right? You have to build it into the DNA of your organization as well.
Very insightful. Michael, you talked a lot about business context, and oftentimes we get into these discovery meetings and the technical person wants to jump to the tech, right? And then someone's got to sort of step back and say, wait, what are we trying to achieve? So I'd love to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, so I will preface that I'm a software developer, so my bias is build, baby, build. And that doesn't always resonate well in a boardroom, right? You would not hire me to run your financial institution, hopefully. I will say, though, that there are a lot of tools and techniques and methods and models that technology people can use to aggregate better questions. And I called it like the interrogation. And a good buddy of mine is sitting in the audience here, actually did a lot of those interrogations with me with all the different business units. Like, what are you trying to achieve? But let's start with the current state. Let's understand where you want to go. Let's understand your pain points. And then, again, we want to delight throughout the journey, too. So add value at any step that you can. I think it's really difficult to start with just a business person or just with a technology person. You really have to put on a product mindset. And I think that product organizations are the successful ones, right? So when you look at some of these other financial institutions that are eating our lunch, which would be like your neobanks and your fit for function type of banks. And if you look at them, their big thing is they don't have so many SKUs, right? They're not selling so many things. They're saying no to a lot of things. And I think that having the courage to say no, like, no, I'm not ready. No, we can't do this right now. That is the hardest thing to do as an organization. And it's one of these skills that have just been lost for a while. So take on smaller bits as you're going along, really focus on the jobs to be done, what are you going to get out of it, and then make sure that you're creating some sort of experience for both parties or all three parties that is they're looking at it from the same perspective. Bringing in a partner is a really big part of that success too, because if you all have the same goals and if you're looking at it from a product perspective, okay, this is what we're trying to get into, when you bring on a partner and you're going through some sort of scrum ceremony, right? You're having these cross-functional teams, which you should be doing culturally, and then you're getting that expertise along the way. So you're injecting all that knowledge, and so when you're asking those better questions and you're interrogating, you're getting a lot of that real-time feedback, and you have a very singular focus. You'll be able to move incrementally and a lot faster. So velocity is everything.
You talked about smaller bits. I know Greg and Kelly, you guys talked about taking risks, doing things iteratively versus, taking on a massive transformation and trying to do it all at once. A lot of organizations get stuck doing that. Would love to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, I mean, that says it all. Like, you don't have to deliver the entire journey all at once. You can deliver in pieces, and that's part of the beauty of this technology. I think it's also understanding what's most important and what will be most impactful out of the gate. To the ADKAR methodology: awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. But yeah, in making sure that people are buying into that and that they're seeing the value in it and that they're excited about what's coming next. So be communicative about what your project looks like and what it will look like and the vision. for it. The other thing I would say that I don't think I heard anybody hit on yet is sometimes I find people be like, oh, well, we can't do this because our data is not clean yet, or my data this, or my data that. And it's like, guess what? Like, we had that problem at Huntington. We had like duplicate records all over the place. We found like all these other systems creating new customer records on CIF. And then when we connected CIF, people were like, oh, we can't turn that on for our users because we have all these duplicate records. And I'm like, okay, so what are we going to do to clean it up? And how long is that going to take? Like, the problem is there. Let's deal with it, you know? And so data is not going to be perfect. And so that's the other thing is like, don't let that get in the way of flipping something on and getting a process revved up and ready to go. And yeah, it's okay if something doesn't go. We had a big one of our iterations we put out there, it didn't go well. We pulled it back and got the right people involved and changed it. And it's okay to do that.
I would add all of those things. It feels more like start before you're ready. It absolutely, I remember specifically having this conversation with our ELT. It's like, well, where does this live and where does this live? And, who owns what and, what. And I sat there and I said, this is what starting before you're ready feels like. We don't have any of these answers and we're not going to. But we're going to keep going. And it takes a lot of courage to do that. And so where we started was just a business unit that didn't exist, right? We didn't try to transform our entire organization at the time. We were absolutely taking a lot of learnings from what we have over the last 3 years to I would say, the core set of our business. But we started absolutely before we were ready, and we didn't try to transform everybody. I think the other key piece in our journey was the ag tech team was really in incubation. We were within the CFO. We just kind of hung out and in hiding and worked our tails off, but didn't keep everybody informed, which is very different than I believe was shared here. We just kept our head down and to see how far we could get. I will tell you it was at a cost, because when we came out of hiding, we had to do a lot of, here's what we've been doing, here's why we've been doing it, and here's the success that's come along the way. But we couldn't have gotten that far if we were out in the mainstream. And so I think that's important for people to hear, that you don't have to necessarily do it out there, but be ready when you do come out of hiding, I call it. I could have used 6 more months, by the way. But we got out there before we were ready. And it definitely helped us get to where we were at, because we were isolated or insulated to be able to just make very different decisions than we had in the past.
Great discussion. So iteration, and it's a big part of the way we like to implement. It's a big part of the way Encino, Salesforce likes to implement, is doing smaller POCs, especially early in the life cycle of a project, because trust is a big issue and folks are challenging ROI. There's no better way to prove it than to prove it, right? Than to get something done. Maybe it's a small group, maybe it's one line of business. So let's switch gears a little bit and start to talk a little bit more about the technology platform. This thing's going in and out, right? Okay. So dealing with institutions, I'm just gonna. So dealing with institutions day in, day out. One of the things that, again, it is a fun, if I'm gonna vent it a little bit, I see a lot of product focus. And when I say product, not what Michael's talking about, but specific software products that this line of business buys for this use case, another line of business buys for this use case. 10 years later, you've got like 16 products that you're dealing with. You've got a tangled mess, you've got chaos, and now you want to take on transformation. So why start this discussion, Michael, with talking about the power of an enterprise platform like an Encino or a Salesforce, versus buying product and just having a kind of that myopic focus.
Yeah, I think that. Oh, okay. Yeah, please. Well, I think that from like an enterprise customer perspective, we're always looking for ways that we can build on top of a platform. So how can we build on the top on the shoulders of giants? And I think that in the credit union movement, that's really big, right? We all focus and we work together to help each other to achieve value for our members. And so why wouldn't we use that same perspective when we're looking at acquiring a new platform like a Salesforce? And I think that really put us in a really good position, because then it's like, oh, okay, we build on top of a platform. That's 50% less investment we have to do. But now I can go after way more talent. I mean, Dreamforce is like 50,000 people here, probably even more. And all of these people are citizen developers, traditional software developers, and others. So if you're looking at building, why not build on top of a platform? And I think that's probably the beauty of Salesforce, but also makes sense for smaller folks like us, credit unions of the world, to say, oh, okay, we could play in that same world. We're just going to use the same fabric, and we're going to be on the same fabric as everybody else. We're just going to add different value at different entry points.
Platform is also one of those very kludgy words that everybody can have a different perspective on. I look at it as very simple, and it's been used for 20 plus years now already, right? The reality is, I speak in terms of analogies, right? So you think of the railroad infrastructure across the country that moves freight everywhere. The tracks are the platform, right? The cars that run on those tracks from hundreds of different providers, they all share those tracks. It all moves seamlessly, right? It's the exact same thing with technology platforms, right? Like Encino is a car that runs on the Salesforce wheels, right? So you can, it slides right in and shares the same infrastructure, what have you. And there are hundreds of partners that do the same thing, that allow organizations over time to move from having 30, 40, 50, in the case of large banks, thousands of railroads, right? Trying to figure out how all these tracks intersect to get my journey from, origin to destination. The reality is today in 2023, there's only a handful of platforms that, deliver on the railroad analogy. And when business leaders understand that in very simplistic terms and understand how they can slowly move the institution away from, dozens of railroads to 1, 2, or 3 railroads and cars that can shift between them, right, with the right interoperability, that then unlocks the power. And everyone in this room, in this conference, has chosen the Salesforce platform, right, to realize the advantages of that vision, whether it's cost, whether it's new innovation, whether it's, monetizing something they've done and spin it off as a separate car in that railroad, right? Those are other opportunities. So we only see the industry moving more and more connected, right? Where different cars from different railroads can now, interoperate with each other. So if an organization doesn't have a platform-oriented mentality, understanding, strategic investment, says, hey, we have to replace our AML backbone, right? Or our payments gateway, or whatever it is, right? Well, which platform or members of that platform ecosystem have the tools that can allow us to do it so we can take advantage of it, versus the AML team going off and trying to source something of their own, and we're right back where we started 20 years ago, right? So having those baseline understandings and strategies and owning them are paramount to realizing the dream of what platforms like Salesforce offer.
Do you have a slide on that? I love the train track thing.
Give me 20 minutes, you'll have it.
All right. Okay. So Michael and Kelly, you guys, in our discussion,
I'm just going to talk this.
You guys talked a lot about humanizing technology and having a consumer experience, even though a lot of your business is with businesses. Would love for you guys to expand on that.
Yeah, I always say that the agricultural finance industry has a really good place to kind of take from, right? We have a really great consumer experience that we have. So the places that you and I shop, the places that you and I get our financial business from, the agricultural industry, agricultural finance industry can take a lot of what we've learned there and see what we can do on this side. And I always say that our farmers shouldn't have two different worlds. They shouldn't have a consumer world that they have all these conveniences and ability to, move money, take money, get money, and then come to the agricultural finance space and have to come to us in person. I want them to match. They should be able to do both. And so what we've had the ability to do is learn from an industry that's been there for a long time and be able to, how might it work for our agricultural financing folks. So again, it could be your farmers that are in the field every day, but it could be all the way up to your really large agribusinesses, your big seed companies, your big manufacturers, your big ethanol plants, etc. How can we replicate that? And so we've been able to, I would say, learn and be able to tailor it for our team.
I'm just going to jump in there because sorry to interrupt, but something you said. 75% of the institutions that Encino deals with are B2B lenders, right? So complex loan processes, agri-finance, syndicated loans, you name it. And the one consistent theme that we are hearing time and time again is the consumerization of the commercial or B2B side of the bank, right? Yeah, it's a complex loan process. Yeah, there's collateral and covenants and exposures and financial analysis and spreading, but like the tech is at a point where a lot of that can just be done and populated, and the humans who have to make those complex risk decisions, let them do that, right? If a consumer scenario can have everything or 90% of it pre-populated and the docs generated and all of that, right? Like, why are commercial lenders or what have you still just have a digital paper form? So the consumer it's now bleeding right up market, even in the complex corporate space, right? And the platform scenarios are the ones that bring those to life. Sorry.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I think that, I want to start off with like a really quick personal story here that happened about 25 minutes ago. I washed my hands with lotion in the men's restroom. When I walked up to the sink, right, the thing that I was thinking is I'm going to wash my hands, right? And the first thing that was available on the counter was the lotion dispenser. And after 30 seconds or however long it takes for you to do the ABCs, I realized that was lotion. I did move over to the soap. We're sharing a microphone. I did move over to the soap. So when you think about why do people come into your branch or why do people engage with you, it's probably they have in their mind something very specific that they want to do. And if you have a bunch of like weird things and weird technology in your branch or a bunch of crazy checkboxes on your forms, or just probably turning something into a DocuSign that was a paper form from the 60s and 70s, not to say credit unions ever do anything like that. If you try to do all those things, you're making it harder and you're providing more friction. And the idea with humanizing technology is you're going to increase the member experience and you're going to reduce the friction. Also, if everybody's wondering why my microphone is working so well, my family owns a music school, so operating microphones is like a really big part of my life, I guess. I don't know, it's just the angle. So if you really think about like just how I approach the microphone, how I approach washing my hands, really having in your mind what it is that you're trying to achieve and trying to reduce all the barriers and all the friction so that you can achieve that goal, and you can achieve that goal hopefully together with your customer, I think it's going to have a more delightful experience. And the delightful experience is what people are going to come back time and time again for, right? Disneyland doesn't have the best rides, but everybody keeps coming back and they wait in those lines and they eat the churros in the lines, or they get yelled at for eating churros in the lines during COVID, which may or may not have happened to me. And that's why they come back, is for that experience. So I think that humanizing technology is probably the hardest thing to do. I think that generational AI, or generative AI, sorry, I was thinking about transactions and generations, but generative AI is going to help with that wide gulf that's created between technology, business, and your customers. Because I can go into ChatGPT, for example, or whatever Mark is going to be selling or later this morning, and I can say, hey, how do I explain this to a 4-year-old? Not because I want to explain it to my 4-year-old, but because I need it explained to me. And if you can have that level of humility with the technology, it will break things down into smaller pieces, and you can be more iterative in your approach. And maybe you won't wash your hands with lotion, and you'll have a really good focus in your mind of what it is that you're trying to achieve, and that lotion won't be present in a men's restroom. So I think that humanizing technology is the way to win, and it's a very thoughtful thing, and everybody's doing it, so it should be easy.
Okay, Mr. Microphone. So you're telling me it's user error. So you're like this.
We have the good one.
You just go with it. I don't think it's gonna work.
Okay. So we're talking about platform and financial services cloud. Sure, a lot of you are on the platform or you're evaluating your platform. Some of you might be on sales or service and we should get on financial services cloud. We're going to hear from Greg, who does amazing work with the platform, enabling mission critical process like students. So Greg, if you could expand on that, I do have the slide up. You just one up the first in.
Oh, great. Thanks. This will be a memory test. What you've got up here, and I'm not sure if you can all read it in the back, and I'll hit on it. But I think, as we're looking to deliver the most value as quickly as possible with the Financial Services Cloud platform, we're really trying to give consideration as a provider to you that end-to-end journey and what that looks like. And that could mean entirely in Salesforce. It might mean with a partner like Encino at a period or at a point in a process. And we're really focused around 5 key critical areas. I'll just touch very briefly on those. There is an FSC roadmap session. I think it's today, actually. It's not my session, so I don't remember. But and they'll go deeper into some of these things. But it all really begins with some foundational elements that really speak to the power of a platform. And when you think about we talk about Customer 360 at Salesforce all the time, but what does that really mean, and what is the benefit of having it in Salesforce? Well, if you look at the 3 bottom bars, you'll see on here some areas that we've really doubled down in terms of our investment in the last, I would say, 18 to 24 months. The first one, I don't remember what order I have them, automation, I think, is the first. Is that? So we acquired a couple years ago a company called Velocity. And so not only through that acquisition, but also through our own organic innovation, we've been highly focused on automation and helping with efficiency and accuracy. We've introduced things into the platform now, and this happened in our winter release last year, that enable things like a business rules engine that we didn't have before, that's highly sophisticated and do very complex things. And there's decisioning tables that can come along with that you don't even really need IT to do. Like business users can actually go in with the decision table. That's just one example. We've got other things like flex cards and Omniscripts, which are ways to present consumer grade user experiences to your customers, but really driving this. And the second one, I think I have data. Data. So, oftentimes, Manveer, I'll look to you to validate this, but you'll go in, you'll assess a project and size it up, and so much of the work falls into the category of integrations. And it's like, I wish there was a silver bullet for integrations. Unfortunately, there's not. And so early on, even when Anthony and I were working together, we would go to the FISs and the Jack Henrys and the Fiservs and try to have conversations, but it really takes 2 to tango, right, if you're going to have that. And unfortunately, the core providers are not always the most easy people to work with for us. So we've taken a really, what I would say, 5-prong approach on our integration strategy, with our goal being we're going to try to get you as far as we possibly can that's within our control to help expedite and increase ROI. And then the last one on the foundational elements is compliance. Now, before we started really investing in compliance, which is something we have underway right now, I wrote a POV, and Anthony and I delivered it probably 1 million times, called Enabling Operational Compliance. It has been my belief from the very beginning, even before I came to work here, that Salesforce is a platform that can do that. It can enable an operational compliance. You can do things like tracking service levels. You can do things like capturing consent. And so that is a really foundational thing in such a highly regulated industry. So that's kind of just in a nutshell, Manveer, what I would call more horizontal innovation. And then in terms of where we're investing on what I would call mission critical business use cases in banking, so we're really focused on how do we help customers create relevant journeys. So what's resonating with your customers or members as you're reaching out and connecting with them? How are you adjusting that messaging? How are you responding maybe in a different channel? And how is that connecting back to the view that a digital channel might have access to view and display, or a banker in a branch? The next one is growing revenue with trusted relationships. So this is really kind of like the bread and butter of Salesforce that we're all known for, kind of some of the sales stuff, but really kind of amping it up. And introducing things like actionable segmentation, which is a new feature that we introduced in spring, I think it was, this year, that really helps not only Bankers create their own individual or curated prioritized list across multiple objects, but also can allow central units like a marketing organization do that for branches, for relationship managers, what have you. The third one is, I think it says digital experiences, but onboarding experiences, modernizing those. Shameless plug, I have a session at 2:30 today at the Intercontinental Hotel. We're going to do just this. We're going to talk to a customer who's in the midst of their project and how they're thinking about it. And this is really thinking about things from all the way from unknown prospects to customers who are generating revenue for you. So that's going to be an interesting session. Undoubtedly, we've invested a lot there just in terms of like basic data model stuff. We have a way, like it's called Discovery Framework, and it's kind of think about it like as a way to take intake information from customers, track it, hold on to it, and it's completely auditable. So if you need to change the way you ask a question, you'll know whether your customer responded to version 1 or version 2 of the question. You can see this all at the campground. If you want to go up in the campground and go to the financial services zone, the SEs there will be happy to demo this for you. Scaling with service customers love. We've got some folks in here from PenFed who are going to be there she is, Olivia. You can see Olivia on stage with my work wife, Kelly Horn, and they're going to be talking about scaling services that customers love. PenFed's done some incredible work around this, and we're going to feature their story and that. And we actually have, we flew in our product director for this from India. He's around. He's amazing. If you see me and want to get some time with him, let me know. I'm happy to do that. And then lastly, delivering personalized financial engagement. So this is really about how do we do a better job of connecting that journey for you so that you're able to have a relevant conversation in the moment with the customer. So that's a combination of Marketing Cloud, FSC, and Data Cloud. So really, maybe it's an exciting time right now, and that's my 5-minute version of a 45-minute roadmap session. So I encourage you to attend the roadmap session and visit campground. You can catch a breath now.
Yeah. You did great. That was amazing. So just quick time check.
Quick time check. We got about 15 minutes. There is food in the back for those of you who didn't get a chance to eat, and there's coffee in the back as well. We're going to take this thing home with change management. And just for the sake of time, so we have enough time for questions, I'm going to ask one brave person to kind of give their take on change management. My perspective is that it's typically underfunded. It's not focused on enough, early, middle, or end. So would love to get a point of view and perspective from any one of you.
I'll be brave. I feel like I'm in the thick of change management every single day. And we deal with change management, whether it be for our internal team members and the change management that it takes for our farmers as well, who are utilizing our platform. So there's both. And so we have a unique perspective where we have to help manage. And the good news is our client farmers are the ones helping us push the change. They're the ones that are logging in, doing business online, and appreciating doing business online. And so I would say that they're helping us pull the rest of our organization, who is a long tenured organization who's been there. You know, I've been with a farm credit institution for about 18 years, and I'm probably on the low side of my tenure, just to give you kind of a lens into how long we've been there. It is often, but I would say you not only need your internal team members to talk about it, you also need to be brave enough to be wrong. And what I mean by that is it might look like this, but 2 years later, 6 months later, you might say, actually, it looks more like this because we know more information. So you need to be brave enough as a leader to know that your perspective or what we know today will likely change, and be able to be willing to stand up to that and say, I know I told you this, but here's what we've learned from our clients and our farmers of what they need and want, and here's what we actually are going to be in the marketplace. And that can be really difficult to say, hey, I was wrong, but that's the bold things that you have to be able to do as along with the change management. So, but I would say the key for change management is talk about it often in the way that you described it. But it's not just with your leaders. It's with everybody on my team. You know, we're constantly talking about like, hey, that might be a difficult conversation because what they did yesterday changes, right? We know more, and what they used to do is now this. And let's make sure we can encourage them and talk through them the why in that. And in some cases, especially somebody who's strategic and futuristic like myself, you have to bring the right people alongside of you that can help bridge those conversations as well.
I'm going to just say that, I think we're living in an era where, and this might be contradictory to what you said, but we might want to consider discarding the term change management. Because, if you just look what's happened in the last 6 months with AI and all the generative, the chat GPT-like assistants you're now going to see. And there's some incredible foreshadowing going on that says, the next 20, 30 years of technology advancement is going to eclipse anything that's happened in the last 15 years. So the reality, whether the industry likes it or not, and whether leadership likes it or not, is that everything is changing all the time. We're not going from A to B and then we stay there for a long time, right? The technology is advancing, customer expectations are advancing, competitors are advancing. So change has to be part of the DNA. It's every month, every release, we're evolving and adapting, right? And how you say change management is a one-time thing to go from A to B versus we are constantly evolving. This is part of the culture. You're going to learn new ways to work, new skill sets, etc. I think that shift will be forced on the industry, whether we like it or not, because the speed at which things are happening those outdated concepts just aren't relevant anymore versus changing the mindset.
Awesome perspective. Okay, we're going to open it up. So we talked about unified vision. We talked about governance and executive decision making. We talked about the importance of an enterprise platform like Salesforce or Encino, and then we briefly touched on change management. Any feedback or questions out there from anyone from our panel? No brave souls. We gave you all the answers? You got it all figured out? Okay, Eric.
How do you guys manage or organization the team around development, but also knowing what you need in the marketplace, given what happened earlier this year? How do you manage that so that your team members are going to bound on a constant basis and rise?
Did you guys get that?
Yeah, I think that, so we had talked a little bit about, some of the macroeconomic conditions that are making it more difficult for people to even have the conversation to invest in some of these larger, pieces of software. And that really is hard. And I think that, Warren Buffett, when he said that there's blood in the streets, that's when you should be ready to open up your wallet and start investing into your future, because there's probably going to be some fire sales and these kind of things. Those are like super encouraging because we know that these markets are cyclical and there's going to be another side of this. So I think that from like an organizational perspective, if you're taking on more change than you're like able to do, like what I did at Travis Credit Union, we did a core conversion, then we went right into Salesforce. Change is hard. And I think that I agree change management should not be like the buzzword anymore. It should be like the ABLs, the always be learning. And I think that that is going to allow your organization to take on some of these new things. If you have a learning culture, you're going to be able to adapt to some of these things, operational readiness, et cetera. But then from a financial perspective, it's like, hey, SVB, they had X amount of dollars, and that's X amount of dollars that's now up for grabs. So what is that worth to us? And so how do we invest into the things that are those type of goals, knowing that the situation's right now, it's right here and it's in front of us. So the folks that have the courage to make those investments are the ones that are going to take some of those customers, or really from a credit union perspective, add that value back where there was a vacuum that was created.
Awesome. We got time for one more.
I was just going to say, Encino, who, 75-80% of our customer base is to the regional and community banks. So when March, April, May hit, you can imagine what that did for us, right? Our market froze. And we had to respond in an analogous way to way banks were responding. Like, is our revenue going to dry up? What's going to happen? We had to publicly disclose that Silicon Valley Bank, was X% of our revenue stream, et cetera, et cetera. And it was very interesting to see how we navigated those several months And what it turned out to be is that from our CEO down to a few of us who have been through, 3 or 4 of these cycles, I think 80% of our internal employees are, 35 or under. So they've never really experienced an economic blip. And, so the reassurance we gave, the pivot to different investments, right? The financial security, and, people who haven't lived it don't understand that this is normal, right? Now, granted, and it was nothing like 2008, blip on the radar compared to 2008. But it goes back to the type of leadership. Are you knee-jerk reacting to what's going on? Like, we could have, released 25% of our staff, right? But no, we doubled down on our sectors. We reassured our customers. We continue to invest in the right innovative technology. And it's not a shameless plug for nCino. It's saying, how do organizations respond to these type of market events, right? And those that are outside of your control from a financial or liquidity perspective, we're lucky enough to be both in a financial services industry and in a technology industry, that there are buyers everywhere, that a challenge like this is an opportunity, right? And that you will come out of it on the other side, right? These are economic cycles. That's what capitalism is all about.
Absolutely. Any other questions out there? Okay. Let's conclude with that last piece from Anthony. Be brave, right? I don't think we're out of this mess, but you're here, you're curious, you're forging ahead, and that's incredibly important. We're here to help. Salesforce is here to help, and nCino's here to help. We are incredibly appreciative of our panel. Big round of applause for them, guys. So they'll be around for a few minutes if you want to grab them. I'll thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.